Today, I'm going to show you how to defeat Tier 4 Voidgloom Slayer bosses to reach Enderman level 7, with only 10,000 kills on your Final Destination armor. Now, if you do not have 10,000 kills on your Final Destination armor yet, then I would recommend either doing Tier 3s until you reach it. Otherwise, if you went through the natural progression guide, you should have grinded Tier 3s to get to Eman level 6, as well as Tier 2s to get to Eman level 5. And by that point you should be close to or at 10,000 kills or more. Now, in terms of the gear that you will need the following. First, an Atom Split Katana. This goes without question. It is an expensive sword, but you will absolutely need this version of the sword in order to defeat the Tier 4 zombies, which means you will need to get to Eman level 6, which I would recommend doing Tier 3s for, and to get to Eman level 5, doing Tier 2s for. You will need a lot of healing. The hardest part of the Tier 4 boss fight for Final Destination armor with only 10,000 kills will definitely be the healing aspect of the fight, not the damage dealing aspect of the fight. There are a few main ways you're going to have healing. Number one, you're going to need an Overflux Power Orb. It is already hard enough with an Overflux, so it might be possible to do it with a Mana Flux, but I highly recommend doing an Overflux, or obviously a Plasma Flux, but if you have one, then you can probably afford higher kill Final Destination armor. You will also need a Wand of Atonement. This will need to always be on during the boss fight, almost never having it off. You will need the Drain 4 enchantment on your Atom Split Katana. These three sources will be your three main ways of healing throughout this boss fight. Now for the damage phase. You're first going to need a level 90 or higher Enderman pet. The rarity doesn't have to be mythic. In fact, it can be epic, legendary, or mythic, because the only abilities you care about are Endarian and Teleport Savvy. Endarian allows you to take up to 30% less damage from Ender mobs, which is obviously very useful for this fight. Teleport Savvy allows you to deal up to 50 more weapon damage every time that you use an instant transmission ability, either on your Aspect of the Void or your Aspect of the End Sword. This is useful as it allows you to deal up to an extra 100,000 damage per hit onto the Tier 4 monsters, which, as you're hitting over and over and over, really adds up. Then, the last one or two items you will need, optionally, a Floor Zombie Sword. This is another healing item. You do not need this item, but it is nice to use to get out of quick pinches where you're not being as careful and end up losing a lot of health. You'll notice that on each of these weapons and tools, I'm using Ultimate Wise 5 to reduce the mana cost to half. And that's because the most important part of this fight is going to be this Reaper Scythe. The Reaper Scythe allows you to spawn up to 3 Absorbed Souls, or 5 if you have a Reaper Mask, 7 if you have a Ghoul Pet, but 3 will do just fine. Here I am using Master Mode 3 Tank Zombies, although you could use Master Mode 2 or Master Mode 1. The reason I like Floor 3 or below, or Master Mode 3 or below, is because the Tank Zombies level is 80 or lower. The levels are 40 for floor 1, 60 for floor 2, 80 for floor 3, 100 for floor 4, etc. If you're not familiar, the probability of a mob dropping their skull is 100% minus their level and never lower than 1%. So if you're grinding them on floor 4 or Master Mode 4 or a higher tier, then it only has 1% chance to drop a skull per mob. It is really hard to collect souls. However, if you're on floor 3, for example, the levels are 80, so the chance of dropping a skull is 20%, which means 1 in every 5 tank zombies instead of 1 in every 100 tank zombies will drop a skull, and it's much more manageable to get them. I've heard that floor 3 tank zombies are enough, so if you can't go into the Master Mode floors yet, then that's okay, but otherwise if you can, I would highly recommend doing so. This will be very, very, very useful for the hit phase. If you do not want to get a Reaper Scythe, a Summoning Ring, or a Necromancer Sword, you could always use a bow to essentially shoot at the Enderman during its hit phase from afar. I just like the Reaper Scythe because it gives you a big break during the fights and also makes it very consistent and easy to deal with the hit phase without being surprised. And also, healing will be a major problem, so during the hit phase you can have your Reaper Scythe zombies attack the Enderman while you're spamming Wand of Atonement and Floor Zombie Sword if you have one to get yourself back up to full health. Now, I'm going to do an example run of me killing a Voidgloom. Okay, I'm now at 98 out of 100 kills, which means I just need to kill 1 or 2 more, and we will spawn the boss fight. I will try my best to commentate how I'm killing the boss as I'm killing the boss, as I've tried to explain it well without killing the boss, and I realize it's much harder to understand what's going on unless you're actually seeing it live. So we're going to kill 1 or 2 of these, and we're going to start the boss. Quick recap, what we're going to do is we're going to immediately place an overflux, and then we're going to spawn our Reaper-sized zombies to get through the hit phase. Whenever the boss goes through a laser beam phase, we will be jumping. The very first one will be harmless. The second one, he will spawn a Yang glyph during the beams, so you have to get it, and it's very likely you might get hit by one of the beams. You want to avoid this as much as you possibly can, since it will decrease your healing for the next 90 seconds, and since we're doing with this with 10,000 kills or less, this is very impactful. But try your best. Yang glyphs are #1 priority. They're the beacons that he throws. Whenever he throws one, you must get to one, or you will be one shot. Now, and then finally, the least important part will be the skulls. I find that you only need to do about 1 or 2 skulls, and then you can kind of leave the rest and just DPS the boss until he's dead. Let's go through this through a live example. I really hope not to embarrass myself. I like to do it here, over here, just because there's another person doing the boss. I don't want them helping me doing this boss. So let's go. Okay, first things first, overflux and Reaper-sized zombies. So the Reaper-sized zombies will take the tank hit, and remember to use your Wand of Atonement throughout the fight. There's a little bit of a bar here that tells you when it is going to be drained. Just make sure that that bar is always filled up. We're going to Aspect of the Void so that we deal a bit more damage, and make sure to keep the Wand of Atonement. You'll see my health bar is decreasing quite rapidly, but I just keep my Wand of Atonement next to my overflux and everything is fine. During the laser phase, we want to avoid the laser beams. Okay, there's a little bit of lag, so I just couldn't avoid the laser beams, but you'll see that it is still possible to do it with the laser beams having hit you. Obviously, if they didn't hit you, it's going to be a lot easier. Now my healing is reduced, but I'll show you that this is still possible to get through, even though I'm getting to very, very, very low heart amounts. That's because we're going to go through a hit phase, have Reaper-sized zombies, and during this time is when I can heal, and even use my Floated Zombie Sword, and I'm back to full health. Once the hit phase is over, we gotta go back in, Aspect of the Void so that I can deal more damage thanks to the Enderman pet, and we're gonna keep going until he throws his first Yang glyph. Once he throws his first Yang glyph, get it by standing next to it, keep spamming the Wand of Atonement until he gets into a laser beam phase, and this one is where we gotta be careful because he will throw a Yang glyph during this laser beam phase, and we have to get it and try not to hit a beam while he's doing so. He's going to immediately aggro you once you have gotten that Yang glyph, and throw another one. After these 3, he'll take a little bit of a break with the Yang glyphs. Make sure that your healing is still up. As you can see, I'm about half health, and I'm going to spam a bit of Zombie Sword to try to get back into business. Oh, I forgot. I need to place an Overflux Orb after the second beams. That's something I forgot to do while I was talking, because again, this is just such a stressful fight, and it's hard to speak at the same time. But do remember, you'll only need to place the Overflux twice, once at the beginning of the fight, and once after the second hit beam phase is over. I'm trying to look at the skull while in F5 mode, but it's not working. But remember, as I said, you can skip some of the skulls if you really want to. What matters most is getting these Yang glyphs. And here is when I can just DPS the boss. He'll throw another Yang glyph, but I just DPS him till he's dead, and we're chilling. You'll see I'm at 1 heart left, and we barely made it, but it's just enough. So it is possible to do this with 10,000 kills. Indeed. But it is still a very difficult fight, so if you're grinding, best of luck. I do not kill this boss with 100% of the time. You'll see even there I made a mistake. I did not place an Overflux. I was wondering why I wasn't healing. So this is indeed an optional weapon. If I did place an Overflux, I wouldn't have taken as much damage to the moment where I would have required the Floated Zombie Sword. But again, it just shows that even with 10k you can make a few mistakes and still get away with killing the boss. Just for the sake of showing, I'll do one more where I'm not speaking how to do the boss fight, but rather just do it once in full so you can see it for yourself without me making any mistakes. So I'll come right back once I have enough kills. So there you have it, guys. Hopefully that no-talk walkthrough of me killing the boss was a little bit more useful. I would like to point out two things, which is one, there was a little bit of lag during the fight, so that's why I ended up having to place my overflux before the second beam phase and even before the first Yang glyph. Usually you want to place it down or it'll run out right about the time that the second beam phase comes about. That's usually how I remember it. And this one, because of the lag, I had to place it a little bit more prematurely. Nevertheless, you'll only ever end up usually having to put down the overflux orb twice, one at the very beginning of the fight and one when the first one runs out. The second laser beam phase is just usually a good standing point for when the first one will run out most of the time. And secondly, at the end of that fight, you'll notice I started taking a lot of the laser beam hits to myself, which was going to really cut down on my healing. If you were a bit more careful and was able to get the Yang glyph without hitting the beams, then you wouldn't have needed this Florid Zombie Sword. But in that case, since I made a bit of a mistake, I did end up using the Florid Zombie Sword to get me a bit into better health spot to be able to then just fully DPS the boss. Again, if you don't make any mistakes, you won't need the Florid Zombie Sword, but it just goes to show how useful this item can be as well, just to get yourself out of quick pinches, just because the two killing boss walkthroughs that I just did required me using it because of some mistakes. If you're perfect, however, you definitely don't need it, but highly, highly recommended utility item. Now, into my final tips and tricks. Number one, I highly recommend that you farm your tier 3 or tier 4 Voidglooms inside of the Zealot Bruiser hideout here. And there's two reasons for this. One, it will take a lot longer to spawn the bosses. So as you'll see here, it'll take roughly 100 kills for me to get the next Voidgloom Seraph 4 boss. Versus if I go over here into the Void Sepulcher and I kill one of these guys, well, if it resets the counter, if I kill one of these guys, you'll see I only need about 56 kills, which you think is great because it means you can do the bosses way more often. But since this is a 10,000 kill Final Destination armor guide, in the Zealot Bruiser hideout, you will end up killing much more Endermans for each boss, which means you'll get much closer to that 25,000 kill count that you need in order to be a bit tankier, or especially if you're below the 10,000 kill threshold, then in the Zealot Bruiser you'll get even more kills as you need. Now the second reason why I recommend you farm your quests inside of the Zealot Bruiser hideout is because the Zealot Bruisers themselves drop Summoning Eyes. At the current moment, Summoning Eyes sell for about 1.57 million coins each inside of the bazaar. This isn't the only way of making money. You'll also drop a lot of crystal fragments as well as endstone protector shards and other valuable items that you can then sell to make a lot of profit. If you're anything like me, you're probably trying to do tier 4s so they can get to Enderman Slayer level 7 and get your hands on a Terminator bow. So you can have some fun somewhere else, maybe like me, to do dungeon floors just that much stronger. Since you're going to need a lot of money, roughly 370 million coins, for an item like the Terminator bow as of the current timing of filming this video, it is nice to make some money on the side. So for these two reasons, I highly, highly recommend farming your Slayers inside of the Zealot Bruiser hideout instead of the Void Soldier. Now for my second tip and trick, I highly, highly recommend making use of good shards. What are shards? Well, with the new foraging update comes this hunter box, which you can do /HP to access, and the attribute menu, which you can do /AM to access, which gives you a bunch of permanent buffs that are very useful. Specifically for Ender Slayer grinding, there's a few that really help out. One is Ender Ruler X here, which grants 30% more damage against Ender mobs. Ender Resistance X, which grants 40 defense against Ender mobs. And then some that are unrelated. For example, Warrior X increases melee damage dealt by 25%, and so on. Now the way that you get these is with shards. So for example, Ender Resistance requires in the source. You can always go to the bazaar and look up something like Zealot shards. So one of these will go for roughly 9,000 coins each if you create a buy order. And usually you need only about 24 or 32 in order to max out the perk at level 10 in total. So for something like the Zealot shard, depending on if it's 32 or 24, I don't remember, let's say it's 24, it'll only require about 216,000 coins in order to be that much tankier against ender mobs, including the Slayer boss. A couple of good ones also include Shell X to grant immunity to all knockback, as this is very useful, as well as Elite X, which grants 30% more damage against bosses and mini-bosses, including the Slayer boss here. And lastly, for my final tip, this will be reforges and enchantments. So for your armor, I highly recommend Ancient on all your pieces if your Catacomb level is high enough, preferably 28 or above. Myself, I'm at level 30. It works really well. For the sword, you'll want Fabled. This is just the best, and you want to make sure that you Hot Potato Book and Fuming Potato Book, although for the armor, you can get away with just Hot Potato Booking. That is totally okay. For the accessories, you will want Itchy, as this will provide a good blend between strength and crit damage. And for the ultimate enchantments, I highly recommend something like Ultimate Wise 5 on every single one of your abilities, especially if you're using a lot of tank zombies from Master Mode Floor 3 with a new Reaper Scythe, as this will half the mana cost of each of your items. I wish you could use it in an Overflux, but you can't, but this will make you be able to reliably use your abilities throughout the fight. For your armor, I'm using Last Stand myself, just to give myself that extra bit of defense when I reach below 40% health, but one that I heard works even better than Last Stand would be Refrigerate. Now be careful, because something like Refrigerate is a little bit more expensive than something like Last Stand. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. I hope you found this tutorial useful, and if you did like the video, I'd highly appreciate if you left a like, comment, or a subscribe, as that would really truly help out the channel. And yeah, but otherwise, ciao ciao my friend. Bye bye.